Imagine walking along a shady path in ancient Greece. The air is warm, and the sound of birds fills the trees. In the distance, a group of students sits under the trees, listening carefully. In front of them is a man with a beard and kind eyes. He is not just a teacher, he is one of the greatest thinkers who ever lived. His name is Aristotle. Aristotle was born in 384 BCE in a city called Stagira in northern Greece. From a young age, he was curious. He wanted to know how the world worked. Why do plants grow? What is happiness? What are stars made of? He asked big questions and kept looking for answers. When he was a teenager, he went to the city of Athens, where he became a student at a famous school called the Academy. That school was started by another great thinker, Plato. Aristotle studied with Plato for many years. He loved learning and reading, but Aristotle didn't always agree with his teacher. While Plato focused on ideas and the world beyond what we see, Aristotle believed we should study the world right in front of us. He thought that by watching and asking questions, we could understand nature, people, and even the stars. Later, Aristotle started his own school in Athens. It was called the Lyceum, but it wasn't a school like we have today. Students didn't sit at desks. They walked and talked as they learned. That's why some people called Aristotle's students peripatetics, which means people who walk around. Aristotle studied almost everything he could see and wonder about. He was curious about the natural world and wrote about animals, plants, weather, and even the stars. He carefully observed how living things grew, changed, and survived. He once spent time studying sea creatures on the island of Lesbos, where he watched fish, crabs, and octopuses in the water. He described how they moved and what made them different from each other. His notes on animals were some of the most detailed studies in the ancient world. But Aristotle didn't stop at nature. He also thought deeply about people and how they live together. He asked important questions like, what makes something right or wrong? What makes a good leader? What kind of government is best for the people? He believed that laws, fairness, and kindness were just as important as science. He wrote about friendship, family, and the best way to live a good and happy life, ideas that are still read and talked about today. Unlike others who simply guessed or told old stories, Aristotle used careful thinking and evidence. He collected facts, compared ideas, and tried to find patterns. He made lists, grouped things by their traits, and asked new questions based on what he saw. He believed that understanding the world took both logic and observation. Because of this way of thinking, many people call Aristotle one of the first true scientists in history. He was also one of the first people to think deeply about how people should live. He believed that the goal of life was not to be rich or famous, but to be happy and good. To Aristotle, happiness came from living wisely, being kind, and using reason to make good choices. He believed in the power of the mind and the importance of learning not just for school, but for life. Aristotle also had a famous student of his own, a boy named Alexander. This boy would grow up to become Alexander the Great, one of the most powerful leaders in history. Before Alexander became king, he studied with Aristotle for several years. Aristotle didn't teach him how to fight. Instead, he taught him how to think, how to lead, and how to ask questions about the world. Even though Aristotle lived over 2,000 years ago, his ideas are still important today. Scientists, writers, and teachers still read his works. He wrote over 200 books and scrolls during his life. Some of them were lost, but many survived. His books don't look like stories. They are filled with ideas, lists, and questions, like notes made by someone always thinking. In science, Aristotle helped people understand animals by studying how they moved and lived. In logic, he created systems for thinking clearly and making good arguments. In government, he described different kinds of leadership and asked what made a society just and fair. In art, he explained why stories and theater are powerful and how they teach us about ourselves. But maybe what made Aristotle so special was his spirit of wonder. He believed that every child is born with curiosity. He said, "All people by nature desire to know." That means we are all born wanting to learn, explore, and understand. Aristotle believed this curiosity should be protected, encouraged, and guided. When you ask a question in class, when you observe a plant growing, or when you wonder why something happens, you are doing what Aristotle did. You are thinking like a philosopher, like a scientist, like a learner. You are stepping into a tradition that began thousands of years ago and is still alive today. Aristotle didn't have a computer or a lab. He didn't have books the way we do, but he had something even more powerful: questions and a mind eager to understand. And that's something you have, too. His life reminds us that knowledge isn't just about facts. It's about thinking clearly, asking good questions, and using our minds to improve the world. He believed that learning made people better, not just smarter, but kinder and wiser. So whether you love math or music, animals or poems, remember that all subjects are connected. Everything in the world is worth studying. That was Aristotle's belief, and it's what made him one of the greatest teachers of all time. You don't have to be a famous philosopher to follow in his footsteps. You just have to stay curious, keep asking questions, and never stop learning. Because in every great question, there's the beginning of a great discovery.